two, running it back today. Of course, there's a day slate we're still in the midst of. You got myself and Tim, Tasteful Tides, the hater of fun. Chief meteorologist Kevin Roth. You got, of course, Kevin Roth will be joined by Dave Potts. Dave Potts, two-time millionaire winner. Cheeseisgood in about an hour or so, taking y'all straight up the lock. Of course, Kirkwood, Kirkdiese, Kid Yahoo also will be joining that show. Returning champion. He was there yesterday in crunch time. He's back. As far as lock today, Fanduel is going to kind of drive the conversation. We don't have to chat to drive the conversation, but Fanduel has the more interesting slate because they were including a couple extra games. Tampa versus Baltimore at 6:35. That is on their main slate. And the Mets at Cincinnati. That game is in their main slate, 6:40. Verlander versus Hunter Green. Very interesting pitchers, good hitting environment, some good hitters to pick from. Of course, on DK, their slate starts at 7:20 with the Boston-Atlanta game. Tim, we're talking about this pre-show as far as how they handle the conversation, and I think FanDuel obviously they have more to talk about. I believe they have bigger contests, at least if they're still there. I'm not sure if they're gone or not. I know that DK's got the $100K, $15. I think that's still available as well. But, whatever the chat wants to take us, but we have to sort of like qualify a lot of things as far as this is what we're doing on DK, this is what we're doing on FanDuel, because it's a distinctly different slate, yes? As far as when you're shopping around?
Yeah, it's actually a really different slate depending on which site you're playing tonight. Different lock times. It's like a completely different game really tonight, depending on which site you're playing. I'm playing both FanDuel and DK. Definitely the contests seem a little bit smaller in the lobby of DK, just because I think they had their main slate earlier today. But there's still some good contests to be played on both sites, and I think there's things that we can discuss, whether people want to talk about FanDuel or DK.
Do hit that like button. Do subscribe. Do turn on those notifications if you guys are hanging out in the chat, taking you all straight up the lock. We appreciate all that. And again, join the conversation. Whatever y'all want to talk about, whatever you want us to discuss, we're happy to do so. Derek says, Dean with the Braun call yesterday. Ryan Braun's not playing baseball, right? I think he retired, and I wouldn't have called him anyway. Gator Nation saying congrats to Bobby Gomes. Yes, Bobby, we gave him a shout out in the early show. Let's give him a shout out in the show as well. He took down 40K, 50K, a lot of K. He had himself a good evening. He did call. He had a homer call with Jake Bowers, and Bowers took a lot of the Yankees. How many runs have the Yankees scored in the last 20 hours? It feels like it's been a lot.
They keep getting these cupcake matchups. I mean, they're going to do that. Now they got Judge back. It's game on for the Bronx Bombers.
Yeah. I mean, and you're right now. Let us know. Keep us abreast. Keep us I think it's fun personally when you're in the midst of a sweat and you're every single out you make or every single hit you get, your currently winnings goes up and it creeps up. I don't know if you think that's fun or not, but you mentioned that in the early slate you had one lineup. In your one lineup, you stacked the Yankees and you paired them with Washington. Washington, of course, absolutely shellacking, pummeling, whatever adjective you want to use, just hammering Sean Manaea. There was an error. He kind of got squeezed a little bit, but he wasn't really throwing strikes anyway. But they dropped a 9 spot on San Francisco, 9-1 in the 5th. Anything of note? Anything interesting? Any chance to make some noise here, Tim, or just kind of keep an eye on it?
So the Nats that I have on that team are pretty low owned. So if I get a couple home runs, maybe I can make some noise. I'm in the 250 and the 121. So hope maybe I definitely move up quite a few spots if I can get a couple home runs from those guys.
Who are your 3 Nats? I'm sorry, did you run them down?
No, it's 5 Nats. It's
5 Nats.
Yeah, it's Call, Thomas, Candelario, Adams, and who's the first baseman?
Meneses?
Yeah, Meneses. Yep.
Adams almost had a second one. I hope you weren't watching, but he just absolutely annihilated. You see it?
I wasn't watching, Dean, but thanks for that. he's only 2%, so thanks for bringing that up.
That was, you know what it was? That obviously what was tricky there, and I guess you were figuring out. You didn't assume Adams was going to be the lineup, right? You probably thought it was going to be Ruiz. Yeah. And you had to pivot, and that came out, 1:30, 2 o'clock? I don't remember what time that came out. But that's part of the reason. Also, he plays for the Washington Nationals. One-time prospect, But people were assuming, and I was assuming. I think I had Ruiz in one of my lineups. So I had to kind of mess around a little bit. But
I had Ruiz, and on our projected lineups, we had Chavez in it also. So I had Ruiz, Chavez, and I had to pivot to Adams and Candelario.
Turns out that pivot worked out for you for sure. Adams banged out a 3-1 homer. We have all the lineups on the night slate, by the way, with the exception of the Cubbies. No Cubs just yet for whatever reason. 7:40. I guess we have 2.5 hours. So, we're not looking at our clocks just yet. St. Louis just dropped. Edmund, Goldie, Contreras. Well, revenge games are real. The Wilson Contreras. I don't know if they're booing him like crazy, and he's like enjoying the boos. It's been kind of fun to watch. I don't know if it's like a playful boo or it's like a real boo in Chicago, but he's having a good time with it. Dylan Carlson, Juan Yepes, the young Nootbaar, and then Kisner. Andrew Kisner is the catcher. Mets, by the way, lost Nito. Nito's going on the IL, so we have Francisco Alvarez, not just in the lineup, but he is catching for the Mets today for Justin Verlander. Verlander versus Hunter Green. Again, still waiting for that Chicago Cubs lineup. Everything else good to go as far as lineups. Adele's asking me, what year is the Sports Almanac in my background? Yeah, unfortunately, I do not have the 2023 version of the Sports Almanac. My buddy Biff only could hook me up with the outdated almanacs. And not only is it my backdrop, Tim, I'm not sure if you're watching the screen, but it's, of course, the cover of my iPad, because there you go. But the almanac wherever we go.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, Dean.
I got it on Etsy. I had somebody make it like an Etsy. I don't know how I found it, but I was like, it's actually really, really sweet. And inevitably, every single time I go, I fly, there's somebody asks me like, what is, they're very interested in what that is.
Yeah.
Then there's always that one person like they light up. It's like, oh my God, the almanac. Yeah. It's not quantity, it's quality. Like 3 people get very excited when they see it. Yes.
Hey, shout out to you for jury duty on that recommendation. That's an incredibly good show. That's a really
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I finished it. I don't know, last night or 2 nights ago. It's gonna be like one of those cult classics. It's never gonna be like huge, but it's gonna be one of those shows that like people that watch it really like it, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great show.
Yeah, Marsden was fabulous in it. I don't want to ruin anything for anybody, but the guy, well, you kind of know the premise right out the gate. But the guy that they pick is just perfect. He's like, I don't know how many people they ran through, or they just got lucky.
I think they said thousands of people applied.
Yes, yeah, they filled it out, and yes, of course, inevitably somebody talking about Pauly Shore. No, this is not Pauly Shore.
Not Pauly Shore. No.
Pauly Shore was on the Joe Rogan podcast though, so there you go. Shout out, he's making a comeback, Pauly Shore. Yeah, that's a different movie. That's a movie from the 90s that you really don't need to see. It's not. I'm not recommending that. I'm not sure if you saw it like 20 years ago, but it's whatever. But yeah, it's certainly worth watching. And I know Roth was watching it as well too. I'm not sure if he finished it, but yeah, it's pretty fun. And I was trying to think if they're going to run it back. If they're going to do it again. Like you can't do it again in the courtroom, right? Like I mean, chances are most people haven't seen it and that kind of thing. And but you don't want. There's just a risk, I suppose, of doing it again like in a courtroom. Like, how do you do the show again? Basically, is the question, right? They could have shot like 2 back to back and before releasing the first one, but how do they know it was going to be successful? That kind of thing.
Yeah, they'll never be able to do like another season of it. Like that's just like a one and done show, and that's it. I would imagine. I feel
like they can. I was thinking about it. I'm like, I feel like they can do it like in an office. Ironically, because the creator worked on The Office. But I feel like they could do like an office setting, like you hire somebody for a job, and like it's not an actual workplace, and everybody all sorts of shenanigans happens around, and it's just a bunch of actors pretending to work on a job. That's what I came up with.
That's legit. I don't mind that. I think that's a pretty good idea, actually.
Like a small like mom and pop place, not like a a big corporation or whatever, obviously.
Right.
But, all right. Let's dig into the slate. Plenty of time to knock out your questions. If you're asking questions in chat, please be specific. Not just as far as is it for a cash game, is it for 50-50, is it for a GPP, single entry, but let us know if it's for Fanduel or Draftkings. Of course, we'll figure it out if you're talking about the Mets or you're talking about the Reds because they're only on the Fanduel main slate. But just to make things easier as far as the conversation, all right, Fanduel taking a peek as far as ownership there. And again, we're including the 2 early games. It starts 6:35. Crunch time comes in at 6 o'clock. Everything's kind of moved up a little bit. We do have a better pitcher pool because now all of a sudden we can consider Justin Verlander. We can consider Hunter Green. We can, of course, consider the Mets, which can be a lot of fun as well. Lance Lynn is getting the biggest ownership on FanDuel currently, 25%. Let me go ahead and give us a refresh because I have not refreshed in like an hour, so this might have changed. Lance Lynn's looking a little bit better, right? And he's cheaper. He kind of makes stuff work as far as salary. Let's see. I'm just giving a refresh, and I'm buying some time here. All right, 32% for Lance Lynn. That's a huge number facing those Royals. Montgomery at 15%. Should note, by the way, Chief Meteorologist Kevin Roth will be on in a bit, but I should note the weather looks really, really appealing from a pitching perspective in Chicago today. What's interesting is, like, if you look at it on the surface, it's not spectacular necessarily. Like, it's certainly pitcher friendly. But Tim, if you pull up the old Weather Edge tool, right? Chicago. By the way, I learned how to say it yesterday. Hopefully, Alex was hanging out in the chat and he slid into my DMs and I watched the video on how to properly say it. I don't know if I've applied that correctly.
I must have missed this. You didn't know how to pronounce Chicago. Am I saying it wrong? Is it not Chicago?
I think it's Chicago. It's Chicago. Yeah.
Chicago.
But the other part is apparently if you're from the north side, you say it one way. If you're from the south side, you say it another way. So you know how that dialects work, right?
I do.
But hopefully, I think we're saying it correctly, but it was a big sticking point in yesterday's show, amongst other things. 109 game sample. That's a pretty big sample. 109 game sample, similar weather. We have 9 mile per hour wind blowing in from right field at negative 40%, a 40% dip in homers in this specific scenario at Wrigley. 15% hit as far as runs as well. So looks like a really, really good pitching spot. I don't know if I can pay Justin Steele $11K for that's and of course St. Louis historically just wallops lefties, so I can't do that. But I don't know how much I'm picking on him either. Interesting conversation. But then Montgomery is 9.9. He's also not cheap either. And I think these Cubbies are pretty good. We don't have a lineup just yet, but they actually have rosterable players. Shout out Christopher Morel. That was when we called out yesterday. Morel out of the 8-hole, jack in a bag. Get that guy some playing time. He's fun. He's good. Verlander at 15%. Pablo Lopez is probably my favorite tournament-wise at 11%. You don't really want to pick on the Padres, but I like Lopez's stuff. Good case stuff this year as well. But I think it's pretty wide open. And I don't know, Lance Lynn, you're getting a discount as far as price, right? He's 8.8. That's kind of like, but you can get the best of both worlds. A pretty good arm. The Royals, as much as they seem to get rostered, I feel like they get rostered a lot. I'm not sure if that's because of like the temperature seems to be better this year. At least it has been better this year than most other ballparks that haven't really caught up. But where are you at as far as pitching wise? Do you feel comfortable with Lance Lynn being so chalky on FanDuel?
I really do not feel comfortable with Lance Lynn anytime that he's chalky, kind of regardless of site or slate. Like if Lance Lynn is going to be the chalk, I would say that I would be more inclined to come in underweight on him if I'm building multiple teams. I'm not saying that you have to full fade him necessarily. I know that coming from my perspective, like as a single entry and cash game player, he's somebody that I'm most likely going to be fading tonight. I would, he's a good pitcher. He's cheap. I understand the projection. It's really just ownership for me. So like, if you want to play him in cash, I guess you could, but for tournaments, I think I'm out on Lance Lynn. I agree with you about this whole weather thing in Wrigley, but Justin Steele's just way too expensive. So I'm definitely putting Justin Steele in the category of if he beats me, like whatever, I'll just lose. Like if he really puts up that much of a ceiling at that price that I can't overcome that, that's fine. But I'm not going to be rostering him. I do have some interest in Jordan Montgomery. I think he makes for a really, really good ownership pivot. Like if you want to get away from Lance Lynn, he's $1,100 more. He has the second highest, I think the third highest K projection on the slate. And I think that weather, like we talked about, is so beneficial towards pitching that if you're not going to pitch Verlander, I would rank Verlander 1, Montgomery 2, and then I'd probably go Lopez. And then the weird one that I really like if I was playing like maybe larger field
Can I guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I think it's going to be, you're talking about high variance, and I think there's two guys that are high variance pitchers. It's Bayo or it's Green. I think those are the two high variance pitchers. Is it one of those two?
It's Green for me. Like,
yeah,
the Mets are fine. Like, they're showing up all over, top stacks on both the bat and our RotoGrinders projections. Like, yeah, I'm not going to argue. Like, I live by those projection systems. I'm not bashing them at all, but on, some of these shorter slates, and we know Hunter Green has the ceiling. It's just he also has a horrible floor, right? Like, he is a high variance pitcher. And, maybe if you're making 20 or more teams, or maybe put him in one of 20 or something like that. Like, I wouldn't put him in my first 10 lineups that I build, but if I'm getting to 20 or more lineups, I want to get a little sprinkle of Hunter Green, because I think he could shut down the Mets.
So Hunter Green, biggest K rate on the slate this year, specifically 31.3%. Looks like the highest swinging strike rate as well. Too many fly balls, 46% fly balls. He's been really, really lucky. Home run the fly ball at 7.5%, right? Like in that ballpark, 7.5%. Super, super lucky. Therefore, only 0.8 homers per 9. That's this season. But he's been unlucky as far as BABIP. You want to flip it around. 384 BABIP, batting average on balls in play. So he's been unlucky that way. So he's got a 3.74 ERA, but the Sierra is actually lower at 3.41. For sure, he's an interesting, like, whenever Green's on the slate, like, you're supposed to be playing, I think, more Green than the field, and more whatever the stack is playing against them in the field. Like, it's just bet on big outliers, bet on the 99 percentile outcome or the 1 percentile outcome. I think that's just like a general rule. I'm glad
you said something like that, because I don't want people to think, hey, don't stack the Mets. Like, I'm not saying that, but I just am saying this might be an interesting spot to get both sides of the game, because I think there could be some big, like you said, big outliers on both sides.
By the way, did you have Lane Thomas?
I did.
Lane Thomas went, I made a couple lineups, and I just jumped up like fourth in the rally, the rally cap or whatever. Right? I have an a la carte piece of Lane Thomas, so it's not going to hold, but it's just kind of it's a little fun.
I'm like 12th in the 250, and like,
what's your score?
158.6.
Yeah, I mean, I made like 7 or 8 lineups, so I'm cheating, but I have a 173. But like, who knew? I would not have handpicked that one and thrown it in this lineup, but. Yeah, we'll keep going. And you got much more innings remaining than I do. So keep in Candelario got a double. You might get a shortstop pitching or something like that in the 9th inning.
We'll take. I mean, who didn't know to stack 5 Nats, Dean? I mean, really? Like, come on. I mean, they're a bunch of Babe Ruths on that team. Really?
That one year where he was the only guy that hit home runs, maybe. Wasn't there that one year when he had like there's no power, but they've nickel and dimed them, right? The Giants today. Actually, they had a couple homers in this ballpark. Adams and Thomas have both gone yard. 2 guys on for you as well. Yeah, you got a decent chance of getting the 9th inning against Lamont Wade or something like that. Who knows? So we're rooting for you. General question for you. Demetrius has a question in chat. I'm not exactly sure what you mean. I'd love some elaboration, but how do you answer this question? What settings for Fanduel DK do you recommend for baseball? Because there are many different settings that I kind of mess with, and some kind of like there are different routes to get to where you want to get to as well. But how would you go about answering that question? I'm not sure if he's asking for mass multi-entry. I like, if you're going to MME, like clicking if you want 4-man 4-4 stacks, you can just go 4-4, 4-3, 4-2, 3-3. And you can say, I want 25% of this or 20% of that and 30% of this. I probably shouldn't just be saying that, but go to build rules or go to groups. You go to groups and do it that way. No. You go to stacks and do it that way.
You go to stacks.
Yeah.
And obviously, what did that person at? What was the question again?
Just like general settings as far as exposure, randomness, stack percentage. Yeah, and it depends. Like if you want to, If you say like today I like Baltimore and I'm going to play 100% Baltimore stacks and just kind of run them through every other team, it depends how like what kind of stand you want to take, right? If you want, if Baltimore puts up 12 runs, you probably have them with some good pieces, so whatever your stand may or may not be, but it's an open-ended question. You can answer that many different ways, but how would you answer that? Exposure, randomness, stack percentage. I put like hitter randomness like 5-10%, pitcher randomness like 5-10%, team randomness about 20. That's usually what I put in there.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And once you want to adjust that to like kind of depending on the slate size and, contest type too, right? Like, don't you want to build, like if you're playing super, super low dollar, like lots of entries, don't you want to adjust those settings too? If you're playing like the $12 single entry, it's going to be different than if you're playing like the $5 150 max, right? Like it's going to be a little bit different depending on kind of like what type of contests that you play.
I think one of the other useful things, and we have videos for this too. I don't want to just go make it to a whole tutorial, and I'm glad, I'm happy to answer your question as much as we can, as thorough as we can, as efficiently as we can. But one of the things that I like to use is the OIS button, the only in stacks button, because if I'm going to play a player just by themselves, I generally want them to be somebody that can kind of do it by themselves. They can hit a homer, they can swipe some bags. They don't necessarily need their entire team to go off. But say I like the Atlanta Braves today, right? I don't really want to play a ton of Orlando Arcia. But like if the Atlanta Braves are doing a lot of work, then I'll click the only. If I'm going to play Orlando Arcia, I'm only going to play him in a stack because he's typically not a guy that gets the job done by himself. But if they score 12 runs, he probably falls into a couple fantasy points. Yeah. So if there's any other sort of note you can throw out there, but we should move on. But if we can find, I see producer Devin hanging out in Devin, and he's an expert now too. Devin won some tournaments the other day. At least won a tournament over the weekend, I believe. So he uses the tools. Always talking about using the tools, and he's given some advice as well. But there's also some Dave Potts. Cheeseisgood. The start of this year, 2-time millionaire winner. You want to hear what he has to say? I know he put out a couple videos basically as the season started, and those you can find on the RotoGrinders YouTube channel. Hit that like button. Do subscribe. Turn on those notifications. We appreciate all that. Aiden wants to know about the Royals stack. How do we feel about the Royals? Kind of a leverage play, at least on FanDuel. What do we have for Lance Lynn ownership-wise on DK? Because DK, you got to roster 25% of these pitchers, right? So I assume Lynn is getting a fair bit, 53%. So this would be, some people like to overuse the term leverage, but this would be leverage, right? If you like the Royals. How do you feel about the Royals? How heavily owned are they going to be?
The Royals aren't going to be heavily owned at all, I would imagine. We have them. I guess they're getting some ownership, but I think they're okay. I think it's okay for leverage. I think it's okay. It's definitely I don't think it's that great of a spot for Lance Lynn. Like, I don't have a ton of faith in the Royals because they are still the Royals, but
yeah.
Listen. I mean, this is a slate that we're gonna have, I think, pretty heavy chalk with Atlanta, pretty heavy chalk with maybe San Diego.
The Mets on FanDuel, I think, are gonna be really popular, right?
Yeah. I kind of was looking at DK, but yeah, you're right.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's just one of those weird slates, right? But you're right. Definitely with the Mets on FanDuel, and I think that chalk is chalk is naturally shaky in baseball anyway, but I think particularly on a nights like tonight where it's all kind of like just this like muddled mess of offenses that really there's not like one like, oh yeah, I definitely, this is definitely the top team. Like, I don't really get that feeling. Like, yeah, maybe the Mets are on paper on FanDuel, maybe the Braves are on paper on DK, but it's not, I don't think that they're like that teams that you have to have like get huge overweight positions on.
This year, Lance Lynn 28.6% as far as the Ks. That's really good. The walks a little bit too high at 8.6%. Fly ball is not terrible, 35%, 39% ground ball. It's not horrific. And this Kansas City team is not patient at all. Look at the walk rates this year for this lineup specifically against righties. Outside of Vinny Pasquantino, we have Melendez 11.5%, Vinny 11.2%, Prado at 9.5%, whatever. But 6% walk rate. That's really, really small. And the K rate's high, 28.2%. And a lot of the things that we do with Lance Lynn is we count the lefties, right? Ideally, you're not facing as many lefties. You have Vinny, Melendez, Prado, and Massey. Of course, Melendez and Vinny are distinctly better than Prado and Massey. I can see it both ways. And, of course, you're running out a bunch of lineups by all means. Run out some KC stacks. And one of my general rules, and I like my general rules, and I like to break those general rules when I feel it's necessary, but the smaller the slate, the goofier you can get. Like the old blender play whoever you want. It becomes more and more real on a 4-gamer on DK as well, especially, right? 6 games on FanDuel, but you could play. Everybody's a GPP play. Goofiness happens. Washington's put up 10 runs right now in San Fran. Terrible ballpark. Well, Manaya's been horrendous, but you know what I mean. Is that one of your general rules as well, too? It's just kind of like the smaller the slate, the goofier you allow yourself to be?
Definitely. Even in like single entry, like the smaller the slate, like I'm definitely trying to get like way more different than I would on a larger slate. Like 100%. That's the case. It's I don't think we're gonna see any like overwhelming. Like, there's no cores on the slate, right? Like, if this was like a short slate, cores field, 2 really horrible pitchers, like huge condensed ownership, like, I don't know if we're gonna see that. I don't know if we're gonna like see any like super chalk offense.
Cubs lineup just came out. Madrigal leading off. Swanson, Happ, Suzuki, Wisdom, Bellinger, Mancini, Gomes, and dude bangs out a homer. He swipes a bag. He annihilates AAA, and I guess he'd just be thankful he's up. When he's not riding buses anymore in AAA or whatever. But Christopher Morel gets the 9-hole today. I do like him on FanDuel where he's 2.4K, but come on, man, what are we doing? He's still really, really cheap over there. I like the skill, but it's one of those things where this could be a low-scoring game. The environment stinks, and Montgomery's solid. I think he's just an awesome ground ball pitcher, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Isn't that his specialty?
I really like Montgomery today.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm probably going to be pitching Verlander though.
I mean, the difference in price is basically nothing.
Right, that's the problem.
Yes. Montgomery, this is FanDuel. Obviously, Verlander's only on FanDuel. Verlander's 10.5. Montgomery is 9.9. According to our ownership, that's very similar, which is, name brand, you'd think it'd be Verlander. Verlander came back through, 80 pitches, I want to say, maybe 79, 78.
Yeah, I think the bat has him for 94, and I think that's, basically exactly where I would have put him too, somewhere in the low 90s. It's just, I mean, that's not ideal, right? You'd like somebody that you're paying premium for to get over 100, but I think given the matchup, that's still fine. I don't really have an issue with that.
I think it was 79, and I just kind of one of those things I picked up on. The bat tends to default a jump up of 15 pitches as a general, unless it's manipulated. I don't speak for Cardi and for the bat, but that's just one thing I noticed. It tends to, you kind of ramp your arm up and getting back in shape. So I think you said 94, right? Which would be 15 more than 79. That kind of makes sense. That kind of checks out. And he can strike, if he's on. And the velocity was the same as it was. He gave up a couple homers his first start. He gave homers last year too.
That's standard for him, right? He it's kind of like Garrett Cole. He's going to strike out 9 and give up a couple home runs. That's kind of what happens with both those guys. So I'm not really that worried about him. So that's kind of that's why I'm pitching him, right? I'm not. He may have a slightly shorter leash, but I think you make up for it with the great matchup.
So I pulled up. This is including this one start, so it's a slightly manipulated number. Basically, it's last year's stats, and he's known as a big fly ball guy, reverse splits fly ball guy. 44% fly balls. I didn't realize this, how lucky he was. However you want to phrase it. Homer in the fly ball last year, 6.9%. That's really lucky. 0.7 homers per 9. Some people say that's a skill sometimes, right? You never really know. and you can kind of dig in even more as far as how hard the ball was hit. Was it Marco Gonzalez, the guy that was like a big ground ball? No, who's the guy? Martin Perez? I can't remember. There was a certain guy that was like, he would induce a lot of pop-ups, and it would just feel like he's giving up a lot of fly balls, but it was kind of misleading. That's just interesting. I don't know. Super lucky last year, homering the fly ball, or he just does a really good job of giving him like 250-foot, fly balls. I've not seen the average distance. I did not dig into that. But, traditionally, Verlander is a fly ball guy, reverse splitsy, and you don't love him giving up fly balls in Cincinnati. So I think you can roster some Reds. I'm okay. Again, 4-game slate, 6-game slate on FanDuel, but I'm okay to be different and picking on Verlander too. And I imagine you're probably not making him in your one lineup, but if you're making 20 or 30 or 40, you'd probably at least consider, hey, let's get some Jonathan India, some Steer, maybe a little mini red stack. Is that something you'd consider?
I would rather just get like a random one-off here and there. I don't really want to have any kind of skinny stack of them.
All right.
Maybe just it's fine if you want to get really, really weird, but I don't really. I would much rather take a stand on Verlander and getting over the field on him than worrying about Reds.
DK, you got to roster 2 pitchers. We mentioned the ownership of Lance Lynn at 52%. Montgomery, 51%. Distinctly better price there, 8.4K. We talked about how that ballpark is really positive for pitching today. Pablo Lopez getting 35%. Again, less pitchers and 200 percentage points to go around. So the ownership stuff's going to be distinctly different than it is on FanDuel. Steele at 31%. Steele, 1.5K less on DK. Seth Lugo's been pretty good this year. He's just kind of the man lost in the. He's fine. I'm not really looking to pick on him per se. Sure, you can play some Twins. Miranda was set down, by the way. Jose Miranda was kicked down to AAA today. Bayo getting 5%. Dylan Lee is throwing baseballs for the Braves. Did I miss that? Was there? I thought it was like Schuster or something like that. Did they switch? Did I miss something?
I thought it was Schuster too. I'm confused.
When did that happen? Huh. Does that matter?
No.
Do we care? Schuster's not. I wasn't playing Schuster.
It probably doesn't matter that much, but that did kind of sneak up on me also. I thought it was Schuster also. That's weird. But yeah.
Oh my God. Yuri Perez is pitching for the Marlins on Friday. Biggest stud in baseball. If you're in a dynasty league, pick him up right now. Right now. Stop everything. If you can do that. Or bid all your fab on Yuri Perez. He is electric. Whatever you thought was, Yuri Perez is what he's who you want. Wait, he's the guy. Yuri Perez. I promise you, this guy is electric. I was watching some of his tape the other day.
Who's having more fun than you with Florida sports right now, Dean? Like, I mean,
oh my God.
Like you're basically in Titletown now. Like that's what you have. That like you're gonna win all the championships.
I think the Heat are going to beat the Knicks. And I guess that's kind of sort of a foregone. I shouldn't say foregone conclusion, but I think they might beat them tonight and just end it. Julius Randle said, you don't hear this very often. In like the post game interview, he's like, maybe they just want it more. Like that's a weird thing to say.
I didn't hear that. That's funny.
He's like, yeah, they just might want it more than enough. This is coming off Julius Randle playing an absolutely horrific game, and then they got the Panthers who just. I don't know why the world hates Matthew Tkachuk, but maybe you can tell me. You're the hockey guy. I don't hate
Matthew. I don't hate Matthew Tkachuk. I played him a ton in DFS. I think he's awesome.
But he's disliked by opponents dislike him, right?
Maybe he's probably not a guy that you want to play against. That's all I'd say. But I think he's pretty well respected, though. You know what I mean? I think he might just be a little bit. I don't know. Just an antagonizer.
Do you think I think the Panthers knocked out the Bruins. Your Bruins? I think they're your Bruins. At least they were a week ago.
They are. Sorry. They are my Bruins. Yeah.
The Leafs. We'll see. It looks 3-0, and then after that, it feels like it gets. I don't want to say it gets easier because the hockey playoffs are just so unpredictable. But it feels like it's like the final boss they started with, and now they're working backwards. No.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, they're gonna take care of the Leafs and
tonight, hopefully.
Yeah, So, I mean, they're going to have a hard time against the Hurricanes. I would imagine it's going to be the Hurricanes next. They're going to have a tough time, but I would have said that against the Bruins and Toronto. So you never know.
Edmonton, Colorado, the Kraken, Seattle Kraken, best uniforms in the business. They are beautiful.
Yeah, sharp-looking unis. Yeah,
aren't they? Oh, I love them. I love the Kraken uniform. The whole thing, the whole presentation, the name Kraken's nice. They did a great job, whoever was in charge of the marketing for Seattle. All right, let's get back to baseball. According to the chat, they're saying that Lee is the likely opener. Okay. I thought he started some games. Did he not start games this year? Or at least one or two? Doesn't matter. But if that's the case. Yeah. Several people in the chat said Lee's opening. Normally, like if you go on our lineups page, like for example, Tampa, it says Beeks is opening. The possible long reliever, the PLR, is Chirinos. We don't have that for Atlanta. Maybe that'll come in shortly. And I don't know how much that changes things, to be honest. Does that change things a ton for you?
Well, on DK, it says Colin McHugh is the potential long reliever.
Okay.
and then they have Lee as the PO as the potential opener.
Yeah, but I guess it's more of like if you're rostering players for Boston, we're not rostering any of these Atlanta pitchers. I don't think. You tell me.
No, definitely no. There's definitely no Atlanta pitchers that I'm rostering. Definitely
not. All right, I'm just catching up with chat and producer Steve. I forgot. Yeah, I got producer Steve, who's a New York fan, and you're a Boston fan. All my teams are. I apologize. I'm trying to be a gracious winner. I'm talking to Pepsi. Pepsi's a big Toronto fan. I'm still buddies with Pepsi 7. Shout out to Pepsi. And I almost feel bad, because they care so much more in Toronto. There's like thousands of people gathering around this giant screen to watch, the Maple Leafs lose. And this Panther game is like it's taking place in an arena next to like the world's largest mall. People care about the mall more than they care about the Panthers down here. Sure, go Panthers. Why not? I guess. But nobody, we don't really. It's South Florida. We're not really a hockey town. We'll get behind it. We get excited. We like to throw our rats. Shout out to Brian Scrudlin back in the day, 1997. You know the story of the rat, right? I assume you're aware of the lore. Have you heard of the story of the rats, or no?
I don't think so.
So you know how the Panthers, they throw rats on the ice and they score goals and when they win, that kind of thing. That's kind of their gimmick.
Yeah.
Their second mascot is a rat as well. The story goes like in 1997 when they made it to the Stanley Cup Finals, they lost to the Avalanche in 4. I think they got swept. But Brian Scrudlin, or maybe it was Scott Mlb, somebody killed a rat in the locker room. They went on to win the game. They started a streak, and there you go. That's how it all started. And if you're curious why,
I've never heard
helped the other team with them. Yeah, it's the people come in the arenas with like the piles of rats and just throw them on the ice. I don't know the backstory of the octopus there in Detroit, but that's probably even more interesting. How do you sneak an octopus in these days? I have no idea. But all right, let's get back on track. It's a 4-game slate. What do you want from me? 20 minutes. We have the Crunch Time crew coming in. Again, you got Kirkwood, Kirkdiese, Kid Yahoo, Chief Mineralogist Kevin Roth. You got Dave Potts, Cheeseisgood. 20 minutes. Happy to answer whatever questions are going on in chat. Apparently, according to Greg, it was Mlb. It might have been Mlb. Candelario left the game for Washington. Sorry about that. That's one of your 5, I believe, getting bumped off.
Thanks,
all right.
Thanks, Nina.
No, I was laughing at something else. I wasn't laughing at you.
Okay. All right.
I'm rooting for you. I want to see you win. Yeah. By all means. Oh, somebody asked a good question. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Somebody asked a good question because I think my answer is like today, basically. Josh, we got to your questions. Load up your questions. Happy to answer your questions next 20 minutes or so. When do you guys switch over to only 2023 plates and plate IQ? And I think I just recently started doing it like yesterday or today. I still kind of bounce back and forth and look for some, if there's distinct differences. But I'm kind of at the point now where I'm like, okay, 2023, unless there's a reason to go back, right? But that's where I'm at. How about you?
I started like 5 days ago to just exclusively go with 2023. Like you said, though, if you think there's a reason to look back, that something doesn't look right, then definitely go back. But about 5 days ago, when I was like, I'm just going to go with this year. And I don't know if that's right or what, other people do, but that's just what I do.
Frederick, by the way, in chat saying the Lightning have a really good fan base. They do. That's a fun arena to be in when the Lightning are playing well. Big fan base in Tampa Bay. Kind of surprising, sure, but they've done a good job of building it up. All right. Let's just kind of bounce back and forth. Let's get the final thoughts as far as pitchers on both slates, on FanDuel and on DK. Can you tell me your pitching approach on FanDuel first?
Yeah, on FanDuel, it's Verlander, followed by Montgomery. I think that it's tough. Like, projections love him, but I think that I would want to come in underweight on Lance Lynn and get overweight on Verlander and Montgomery. And then I think if I'm looking for some kind of get weird play that's definitely got a ceiling, that would be Hunter Green. Then on DK, it's really quite a bit different for pitching because you lose Verlander, you lose that Mets game. You're really left with Lance Lynn, who's 7,900, who's like, he's even cheaper. I don't know. Like, if you're playing cash games, do you want to play Lance Lynn? Go ahead. I think that I'm probably going to go Montgomery Lopez, but I don't have a lot of conviction with it because this is a really, really bad pitching slate. And I certainly am not going to fault anybody if they want to just eat the chalk and go Lynn Montgomery on all their teams. Like, you could just lock in that combo and just say, I'm going to, get weird somewhere else or do, weird 3-man stacks or a couple strange one-offs just to be different. Like, I certainly am not going to fault anybody if they just want to say, just give me all the Lance Lynn and Jordan Montgomery on DK.
Yeah. I'm going to make sure to get some Lopez, be a little bit different. The chat was asking why San Diego is really popular. I think some of the San Diego guys are a little bit cheaper than they typically are. And just because you have the salary is probably the other reason. I guess we'll talk about the Padres in a second. As far as team totals on the board, we talked about the Mets. We talked about the Reds as like the game being included on FanDuel. There's 2 games included on FanDuel. And maybe that's just me steering the ship, but the total is actually higher with Baltimore and Tampa.
Yeah, I wanted to circle back because we didn't talk about Tampa bats.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're gonna get the owner. I mean, they are gonna be owned because it's just such a small slate, but I don't know if they're gonna be owned enough. And I think that they're coming in about neutral in terms of being over or under owned. I think they're our number 3 stack behind. I believe it's the Mets. Okay, so it's the Mets, the Rays, and the White Sox in terms of our top stacks. But they're gonna be lower owned than the Mets, the White Sox, and the Padres. So I mean, you're getting a little bit of positive leverage with the Rays. So I'm glad that we circled back with them really quick because I think they make for a really, really strong tournament team. Dean Kramer, just I don't know. I mean, he seems really, really hit or miss. He's prone to some getting blown up, and I certainly would not shy away from getting a lot of bats against him.
Yeah, you lost me at Dean. No interest in Dean Kramer for sure.
Yeah, definitely. We're definitely not pitching Dean Kramer.
The tricky thing with him is the Rays that they're kind of expensive, right? And they also they do pinch hit to an annoying, alarming amount. Not the same much as Baltimore, not the same amount as San Fran necessarily, but they're just they're a smart team. They're a smart organization. And they understand how to get the value out of each and every at bat. And guys like Luke Raleigh, vulnerable. They'll even pinch hit for Brandon Lau on occasion if a lefty comes in, which is
that's
just
so
weird.
Stupid. It's stupid.
I mean, is it? I mean, look, they're like 30-0. So like, who are we to say? It's annoying. It's annoying for sure. But and I'm not saying that's going to happen. It's not likely to happen, but it's happened. We've seen it before where a lefty comes in and Lau just gets the hook, despite the fact he's one of their best bats. The other thing is Noah Rosarena in this lineup for Tampa. So A, he's not starting, so it weakens the stack. And B, if this game is close, I think he's healthy, right? It's just a day off. To my knowledge, I think he's just fine.
I think he's fine, but I'm not positive.
So, like, he probably joins this game at some point if the situation calls for it. Just saying. I'm not saying you can't stack him up, but just kind of annoying. Opener there for Beeks, despite the fact they left the opener. Baltimore sometimes they'll start with a righty when they're opposing a lefty, but they're just saying screw it. We're going to start Mullins because sometimes he gets like dropped down to the 6 hole or something like that. Mullins, Rushman, Santander, Mountcastle, Frazier, Hayes. Hayes usually is the guy that jumps up to the 1 spot. Gunnar Henderson, who's been really bad, just terrible this year. A lot of pedigree. Not saying he's like Dunzo, obviously. We'll see. But he's not been good. Mateo, and then Ryan O'Hearn, which I guess they buried him as low as possible because they're hoping he faces Chirinos and not Beeks, right? I don't know how long Beeks is going to go, but
that's an aggressive price tag on Jorge Mateo on FanDuel.
Yeah, but he's not going to get owned, right? If is that correct? He's at 2% owned. Is that what we're looking at? Yeah.
I might need a refresh, but I was looking at under 1% owned. I might have to refresh, but
yeah, I mean 1%, 2%. Well, it's not. Yeah, it's not going to be much, right?
Yeah. Right.
You mentioned by the Mets, the Braves. I guess we should bring the conversation to DraftKings as well, right? And again, whatever questions y'all have, we're happy to answer for the next 11 minutes or so. We would have, they're going to go around the horn. They're going to give their specifics in just a second, 10 minutes or so, not just a second, but in 10 minutes, that's what the crunch time's going to do. Did we rewatch Biodome yet? I just love that question. It assumes we've already watched Biodome, which, to be fair, I have, but like that was like 25 years ago.
I have. I don't even know how long ago that was. Like, that was so long ago.
Pauly Shore and one of the Baldwins, I think it was I want to say it was Stephen Baldwin. Stephen Baldwin, and they're stuck in, well, I guess it kind of explains itself, right? They're living inside a biodome for science purposes. I don't think the end of the world situation. I think it's just they want to figure out some science stuff and study trees or something. But and hijinks ensues, and hilarity, presumably, if you're 12, ensues. But I have not rewatched it, but I did watch Biodome. Travis d'Arnaud is back tonight for Atlanta, which means they must have Murphy in their DH spot, I assume, right? Yeah, he's in there. Okay. Acuna, Olsen, Riley, Murphy, Rosario, Albies, d'Arnaud, Harris, and Arcia. Somebody asked a question earlier that just said it said Albies, and wait, it said it named a couple Braves for some reason. There was really no context to it. It was like Riley and Acuna. And like the answer is sure, right? Like we like the Braves always.
Yeah.
Are the Braves on the slate? Yes. That means you stack the Braves. That's it. I mean, for making like 3 or 4 lineups. I don't know if your only lineup is the Braves every single day, but that's just my Brave rule. And I will have a Brave stack and not breaking it today. And it sounded like you're excited with the Braves as well.
I have no issue. I think Bello will be a good pitcher. I just don't think he's quite there yet. And this Braves team is just so stacked. They're gonna come in with ownership, but I mean it's a short slate. You're gonna have to eat some chalk. So yeah, I have no issue loading up on Atlanta.
Let's see. What other stack have we not focused on? Anything specific we haven't focused on? Do you have any homers for the people, Tim? Any like sort of like bitter home runs, not fun homers? I don't know what the gimmick is we settled on. We were workshopping it the other day. We didn't quite come to it.
Well, I'm pretty sure this isn't that fun, but it might be kind of fun. But Wander Franco would be that's odds not considered. I have not looked up his actual odds for like a sports book bet, but I do like him to homer today.
Yeah, I don't know the odds either sportsbook wise, but I don't mind Franco. I hate that ballpark for righties though. It's like my one little. They kind of try to Aaron Judge proof the ballpark. If you pull the ball down the left field line in Baltimore, doesn't mean you can't hit a homer out there. But the way they push back all those, what is it, like 25 feet? I don't know the exact dimensions, but it's much trickier to homer now in Baltimore. It's been like this for a while, I guess. So it was last season. I think they did it, but still, it's kind of annoying. Yeah,
no, you're right.
Steven wants to know if we can see the DK ownership. I know producer Steve's kind of jumping around and trying to appease everybody. We had it on Fanduel earlier. He kind of jumps back and forth, but I presume if you ask him nicely, producer Steve will show some of the DraftKings ownership. Do you have a favorite value play? Is like a favorite cheapie that kind of makes everything work for you?
Which site? Which site?
Either or. I like Christopher Morel. I guess like if there's terrible weather and you're home and you're batting in the 9 hole. It's just like
yeah. I don't know.
It's a very real chance. Like say the Cubs win this game 3-1, that he only gets 3 at bats, and that's that. Like you don't get the 9th at bat. Like the 9th inning at bats, and you're not coming back. Yeah, it's so like
because I mean you're supposed to say for FanDuel you're supposed to say Starling Marte, right? Like for at 2,800. I mean that's ridiculously cheap, but that might not be the right play for like a GPP because he's gonna come in pretty high owned, I would imagine. Maybe
he's not my favorite cheapie on that team, for the record. I think I'd have him 3rd. I'd have him 4th, I think, amongst the cheapies. Maybe I'm wrong. I like Beatty at 2.8, same exact price, different position. Team Girth CEO Daniel Vogelbach is 2.5. Obviously, you like the polar bear Alonso. You can roster them both on FanDuel. You got that utility spot. And then Francisco Alvarez is super cheap as well, 2.2. You don't have to roster catchers, but Alvarez, legit prospect, legit catcher. His catching skills are somewhat questionable according to the New York media, but he's going to be there's their guy. I don't know if they have a backup. I assume they called somebody up with Nito not being available, and also being on the road, locked in for 9 innings. Like he's going to get those 4 at bats. If they're doing really well, he gets 5.
That just shows how chalky they're going to be, right? Like you instantly named off 3-4 other guys that you'd rather play than Starling Marte at 2,800. Like, right? I mean. People are gonna load in Verlander and they're gonna load in four Mets, and I'm not saying that's not gonna win. That could win, but that's definitely going to be the chalk / optimal build, right? I mean, I would assume that's gonna be like the highest kind of owned pitcher.
Somebody called him in chat Farte. I'm not sure if you saw that. So, which describes how well he's been playing of late, which is not good. And Marte, not young, little in the proverbial tooth, 34 years old, average exit velocity 20th percentile, not good. Hard hit percentage 15th percentile, not good. Even the sprint speed is down. He's got good arm strength. Does that do us any good? No. It's good to know, though, I suppose.
But even if you threw out Marte, you could still go Lindor. Yeah. And or Alonso Vogelbach, do like a double first baseman, and then Beatty, Lindor, whatever, Verlander. I think there's going to be a lot of different combinations of 4-man Met stacks tonight.
So McNeil is one of those guys historically, like I don't really like as a one-off Jeff McNeil for the Mets.
Yeah, I hate playing him, and I'm like a cash game optimal guy, and it's like. I never want to play him, even if he's gonna like get on base and score a couple runs. He is like talk about a guy who's no fun, right? I mean, he's like the king of team no fun. But I mean, he's today 2,900 again. I mean, this whole team is just very very cheap.
That's like the thing. Like he's 2,900, huge ballpark upgrade. Green historically, really vulnerable to lefties. I was going to say lefty power. That's not really what McNeil is.
But I don't really know what McNeil is. And I feel like I've been watching him for a long time.
I'll tell you what he is. He is what they describe as a professional hitter. He's a professional hitter. Yeah. He'll give you a professional at bats. He'll strike out like a professional. He'll ground out like a professional. He'll gut out the single to the opposite field. Like he probably gets more talent out of his bat than he's actually, gets the most out of whatever he has. But like he's not the guy I want. Like when is he ever going to hit 2 home runs and break the slate? Fast forward 4 hours from now.
I was going to say get in your McNeil homer bets now.
I mushed earlier today. My big mush was Conforto, by the way, 2-run homer. My big mush earlier today, and I really went out on a limb, was Miguel Cabrera. It was 0-for-4, and it's just getting sad what's going on out there with Cabrera. Whatever my mush powers may or may not be, I don't have the ability to mush Miguel. He's unmushable. Frederick called him Tony Gwynn Light, which is it's kind of an insult to Tony Gwynn. Even still, I understand Light.
I like where your head's at, but I don't know. That seems so insulting to Gwen.
Tony Gwynn faced Greg Maddux, I want to say 104 times in his professional career. Greg Maddux, Cy Young winner, Hall of Famer, always got the corners. How many times did Tony Gwynn strike out versus little BVP, little Tony Gwynn, Greg Maddux BVP for you? What do you got?
How many times did he strike out against Maddux?
Yeah, not that Maddux was known as like a great strikeout guy, but he got his
Yeah,
face.
I was gonna say. I'm gonna go with 8.
No, it's never. Like, why else would I bring this up? Never happened.
Never.
104 bats or something like that.
That's surprising.
Isn't that crazy?
That's surprising. That's never.
Yeah, never happened.
Yeah.
Tony Gwynn, is his birthday yesterday. Shout out Tony Gwynn. All right. We should have the Crunch Time crew coming in momentarily, I would imagine. We gave homers to the people? Did we play the stack game? We didn't play the stack game, did we? But we can throw out a couple teams as we're waiting, I suppose. I was waiting for the chat to jump in and chime in, but they didn't really throw it. And yes, they're all professional hitters. But when you say a guy's nobody says like Acuna's a professional hitter. That guy just annihilates. You know he's a professional. You don't have to say it, right? You know when certain guys are professional hitters. McNeil, you got to kind of convince yourself. All right, Braves 1 through 5. Where do you have the Braves as far as 5? You love it. 1, you hate it. 3, you're kind of in the middle, kind of wishy-washy.
I love the Braves. So I mean, not considering ownership, I'd say they're 5.
I talked about the Royals. We talked about the Royals as kind of a leverage play against Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn is really, really getting a ton of ownership. Fanduel, the dominant pitcher at 30%. DK getting half the field. Well, not half the field. Getting 50% ownership. Of course, less pitchers to pick from. You got to run out 200% in total. So it kind of makes sense. We didn't really talk about the Twins. Kind of mentioned them in passing, and we kind of mentioned the Padres in passing. How do you feel about that game in general?
I guess if I had to rank like each side, I would say that I like Lopez the most. And then I would go probably Minnesota bats. And then I would go San Diego bats. And then I go Lugo.
If you have to go around, the 2 pitchers and the 2 hitters. That's interesting. That's an interesting way to look at it.
Well, no. I'd go Lopez and then the Minnesota bats. Actually. Yeah. And then the San Diego bats and then Lugo. I was saying I like the way you hit it from all 4 perspectives. I thought that was an interesting way to. That's kind of how I look at these small slates. It's like you got to like look at each side of the game, right? And it's like, I'd be much more inclined to pitch Lopez than stack San Diego, but that could obviously be like completely wrong because San Diego is amazing, right? They have so many good, really, really strong bats, especially at the top of the lineup. But I don't know. I'm not really a huge fan of the Padres bats tonight. Who's breaking the slate? Either a stack or is there a player? Is there? I really like the Rays on FanDuel. Okay, that would probably be like my favorite. Tournament call. They're not going to be unowned, but they're not going to be the chalkiest team either. I really like getting to them on FanDuel, on DraftKings. It's chalky, but if you can get to them, the thing is you can get to them because there's no Verlander. I think it's Atlanta. I would focus a lot of shots. I'd take a lot of shots on Atlanta stacks. Would you play anybody in Atlanta? It's like 1 through 9. I don't like Arcia, but like just by association, I'll play him if it makes stuff work. But everybody's in play in Atlanta, right? Like Harris, should not be an 8 hitter if you look at his skill set. Right. Just he's the victim of that lineup. But it's wide open, right? You can play whoever you want as far as the Atlanta Braves. I think so. Robert's telling me that Arcia has been balling. Has Arcia been balling? Have I missed this? What have I missed as far as Arcia? He's got a 48 ISO versus righties this year. 313 WOBA, maybe like the last week or something. But or maybe versus lefties has been balling. All right, he had a big night last night. I guess I missed that. So there you go. And Tony Gwynn played a little basketball too. 2-sport athlete for the San Diego State Aztecs. He still holds the career assist record for San Diego. How about that? Shout out to Tony Gwynn. The other thing
All
I'd
right.
say real quick is the White Sox. They have an over 5 total, but it's just like the White Sox are just they have no power, it seems like. So I just get worried, recommending teams that just don't hit home runs. But this is a different kind of slate, right? This is not like a 12-game slate. You're not going to need your whole lineup to be hitting bombs. So maybe attacking, Brad Keller, maybe attacking, getting some White Sox with their 5.09 team total. I think that's okay too.
I talk general rules. As a general rule, Tim, general rule. If your K rate, I feel like I'm starting out like a Jeff Foxworthy joke. If your K rate is lower than your walk rate, you might be a terrible pitcher. Brad Keller, this season, 34 innings, 15% K rate. I'm rounding down to be fair. 15.8. I'm sorry. I'll give you every strikeout possible. And your walk rate 17.7%. We have the third chance for Benintendi to show a little vengeance against his former team. He has yet to do so in the first 2 contests. We do have Tim Anderson also back tonight for Chicago. I believe he was not in the contest yesterday. Yes, that game was played. Somebody was asking yesterday. The Kansas City game did play last night after several hours. Roth called it. Shout out to Roth.
Roth nailed that forecast perfectly.
Yeah. Credit where it's due, man. Roth nailed it as always. He always nails it for sure. If he doesn't, the one time the people let him know on Twitter, and it's usually because it's Washington's fault. They do something goofy, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of Washington, anything interesting? Top of the 9th. Oh man, I'm sorry, your Washington team kind of sputtered out.
Look like it's I did get a ton out of them, so I'm not really that upset.
You were playing with the house money at that point, right? You got 10 runs.
Yeah.
Okay. We should be momentarily. I thought they were coming at 6 o'clock. I'm not trying to give like these false, like, hey, they're coming. Maybe I got the wrong time. I thought they're jumping on at 6 o'clock on the East Coast, 6:05 currently. Oh, that's the issue. Maybe we're without Roth. We just have Dave Potts. We have Kirkwood. Hopefully Roth is coming in shortly. Kirkwood, Potts,
Roth,
what's going on, boys?
Roth drank whatever was in that cup earlier with the little chunks of something. He's out. I don't know. I'm nervous for him.
I want producer Steve to drop the Dumb and Dumber gift. Let's see Jeff Daniels. I don't know what's going on with Roth right now, but that's where my brain went, Dave. I don't know about yourself. Anything interesting as far as the early slate? Anybody got any sweats going? Anything worth monitoring, Dave?
Don't know. Haven't looked in a while.
What?
I'm kind of like Tim. It's like I played so much Washington, but it's not really. It's like such a weird slate that's not even really going to matter that much.
So it's
great when you get a sneaky cheap team that scores 10 runs, but kind of whoop-de-doo if you don't get the random Pokemon who hits a grand slam and like some other stuff.
Volpe, do you not look at all, Dave, as far as you're currently winning until I know a lot of times?
I usually do. I was tired today. Like when I have these double days, I went out and sat at a coffee house for 2 hours and just like didn't do anything and didn't look at anything.
Well, did you have like earbuds in or something, or you have a book?
Yes. Although honestly, for a while, I will just sit in a chair and kind of stare at ideally like the sky or sometimes the ceiling, depending on what's up there.
I went on a whole rant this morning, Dave. You probably weren't listening about the psychotic people that go on airplanes and like it's a 6-hour flight and they have no book,
David
no
Putty.
laptop.
What's that? You're thinking about the David Putty episode from Seinfeld, right?
Is that what Putty does? I'm forgetting.
He's and Elaine are flying back on an airplane, and he's just staring at the seat.
Yeah.
Are you just gonna sit? Yeah, you got to go look that up.
Fun fact. I got a fun fact. I played blackjack with Putty all night long until the wee hours of the morning in Puerto Rico at a casino. One of my highlights of my life.
That's one of your top 10.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And you should, how many times did I do the high five?
Did you play it cool and not ask him about Seinfeld, or you asked little Seinfeld questions that he's so tired of hearing?
No, I didn't really mention. I told him I knew he was. I never did the high five. So we had a connection because he has Massachusetts roots. So I used to go skiing where his uncle lives, and so he used to always go there. And then so we were like two Massachusetts guys, and even though he's not a Massachusetts guy, his uncle is in Puerto Rico, and I don't know. We were winning money all night, so it was fun.
Do we have Roth coming in at some point?
He told a story about Charles Barkley at some charity fundraiser event, betting $40,000 a hand of blackjack.
Barkley's done some crazy things. I would say there's a good chance that Roth thinks it's like the usual 5:15. But we start with that. I'm like, Kirk knows a lot about weather, so that's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So,
this is your moment,
dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
You got the
You know what? The whole system is down right now too. Unbelievable. I wish I knew.
What system is that? The 2-point system?
Yeah, the dew point. It's patent pending. I can't say the name, but the dew
It's
point
just
system
in
was a
beta, so
model.
it's understandable.
It's been in beta for a while. Yeah, it's a lot of things going on. Roth sent a cease and desist letter, but he can't mention that because of my lawyer, so he denies it whenever anyone asks him about it. But it's a whole thing.
People believe what you're saying right now when you're throwing it out there. At least somebody believes. Like, what most people know it's a gimmick. I think.
You know what? I've had people DM me asking for weather stuff on Discord.
So Roth did not answer his DM. They said, "Screw it, I'm going to ask Kirkwood. Maybe he knows."
That's always a highlight. Like in-depth questions too. Like it was pretty funny.
You can ask ChatGPT and sound like a genius, I suppose. But I guess retroactively, it probably was not available.
I could set it to automatically just answer them without me even.
Tim,
Dean,
we got lineups to make. Yes, what's up?
Dean, how are you feeling about these Florida Panthers? Are they going to close things out tonight?
We are excited. It's a lot of fun. I'm watching the Panthers tonight before I'm watching the Heat tonight. Like I got my eye on both, obviously.
They're a fun team.
Screens.
Yeah.
You're a big hockey guy. People don't know that about you. Are you still playing DFS hockey?
Oh yeah, that's my second main thing. Yeah, I love it, and I love just
Right
watching
behind
playoff
LOL?
hockey just in general.
Yeah, you still doing LOL League of Legends?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's so amazing. Yeah, stack up those Panthers, man. Get yourself some Tkachuk. Get yourself some Bobrovsky. Has like been spectacular in the playoffs. He wasn't even starting. Like game one, it was lying. Like they just basically said, "All right,
they're just goofing around. They're like, we're going to beat these guys so easily. It doesn't matter who we play."
It's a lot of fun, man. And you're Dave. You used to play goalie, right? Weren't you a goalie once upon a time?
That is correct. Yeah.
There you go. The Toronto could use you.
They could actually. I mean, I would do at least
the
as
Bruins could have used them for that last minute of.
Oh yeah, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Dave,
you're having a great. I know. I heard you're having a great time, Dean. You know, this is your moment, time to shine. I've had many of these moments, so unfortunately, and the tensions are high over here in Boston, especially after the Celtics.
Well, if nothing, Bobby's happy because the traffic is winding down.
Bobby,
so
what a take! What a take! I wanted to like.
Does Dave know his take?
I had to bite my lip because that's his take. He's like, I have no allegiance to Tatum or Brown. Like these are homegrown players. This whole team has been drafted and with first round draft picks, and they've come up together. This is like a team you should have an attachment to. And then Bobby's saying, I don't care. I just care about my parking. Like, oh God.
He lives by the stadium, Dave. So he'd rather his team lose or kind of his team lose, and just like less people be in the neighborhood. I'm
thinking about
that's reasonable.
I'm supposed to go to his kid's birthday party. I got to
have
like some kind of.
If they're like parking all over your lawn and stuff, you'd be like, yeah, let's just end this.
One thing before we go, Dave, I just wanted to say the greatest thing in sports. I think you'll agree with this. One of the greatest, most random things happen in sports. You're not rooting for injury, but when two goalies are hurt, and they bring in like the guy running like the Zamboni to play goalie for a professional game, like especially if it's like against the team he roots for, against the team he like Zambonis for. Like no other sport, there's no cops to that. It's a spectacular thing.
Right. It's like the so far grown up version of like when you're coaching Little League and the ump doesn't show up, so one of the coaches has to ump. But this is like professional hockey. It's like that guy can play for us.
This has happened one time, right? Is that correct?
More than
one.
A
story about
it's more than
I think once it was the Zamboni guy, but it's happened more than once to some random guy.
They have an emergency backup goalie, is what it is. Yeah.
It's not always just random Zamboni guy. That's
right.
That was kind of a one-time thing. Yes.
It's the popcorn guy.
It is amazing when the emergency backup comes in.
And then if you're at the game, you got to root for that guy. If it's going against your team,
Why don't you
got to
just
root
get like
for
a
him.
sumo wrestler and put him on standby? And just,
Wasn't that like the Mighty Ducks? Like, wasn't like a plot line of Mighty Ducks, or am I remembering that differently? I don't remember. But all right, Roth should be coming in shortly, hopefully. Myself and Tim, we have lineups to make. We got lineups to tend to. You guys can hold it down. Fanduel, what starts in 20, 22 minutes or so. The 6-game slate, and then DK, you guys got plenty of time, whatever. You probably will be out of here, for sure be out of here before the DraftKings slate even starts. Myself, Tim, we're done? Yes? You're done?
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Dean, you could host Crunch Time right now. This could be.
I theoretically could, but I do have
your big break.
Kirk, you've seen my hosting skills are next level. We'll be
I know,
fine.
no, they're wonderful. I just
Is
want to make
Grant
sure it's not me doing it. Is the only thing I care about.
I'm sure. I think Roth is coming in. Like he said earlier today, he said he knew that there was a back half. There was a doubleheader. So it's probably just a time
He
thing.
knows a lot of things, but that doesn't necessarily mean he'll show up.
All righty. Dave and Kirkwood, you guys can handle from here. Myself and Tim, appreciate y'all watching the first portion. Hit that like button, subscribe, turn on those notifications. Kirkwood, take it away. Go for it, Kirkwood.
Okay.
I need a Zamboni guy.
So, hey, welcome to Crunch Time. This is Crunch Time. I am Kevin Roth, and this is meteorologist Chris Kirkwood. But there is no weather to worry about, so this is fine. Correct, weather guy?
Yeah, there's a couple of little low chances of a late inning delay in Boston or Atlanta. My model says it's going to be fine. Winds blowing in from right center, 5-10 miles per hour. St. Louis, Chicago. That's I'm picking up from my dew point model here. So that's just something to note. Chicago, KC, maybe a stray pop up. Doubt it. Other than that, I think we're good to go. And you could get some late, potentially a little bit of rain in the Minnesota game. Again, I'm not worried about it.
There you go. So we'll say that weather does not particularly matter. And we'll say we have 6 games on FanDuel. I think we'll pretty much talk FanDuel because it's 6 games and it locks quick. And then we'll, if there's DK stuff to pick up, we will do that after. But so I guess on the pitching side, it's pretty easy to play Justin Verlander. He only threw 79 pitches in his first start. He allowed a couple homers early. But he's still Justin Verlander by name on the jersey, at least. I think he's clearly the best play. And I think Lance Lynn is clearly the best, cheap is not the word, but 8,800. And he's all of a sudden striking a bunch of guys out again. And as far as like the guy who could strike a bunch of people out and has risk, I would rather play Lynn than Hunter Green in that scenario. Jordan Montgomery, Justin Steele, Pablo Lopez on the FanDuel side, like Justin Steele and Pablo Lopez being more expensive than Verlander is kind of nonsense. Like in MME, I have a couple shares of those guys just because that's what you do on a small slate. But there's no logical reason to play Lopez and Steele ahead of Verlander. I think if you're just trying to make a lineup that scores the most points, you'll play Verlander, and then maybe you'll play Lance Lynn to save some money. And then you'll throw in Jordan Montgomery and Hunter Green just so you don't have too much Lance Lynn. Like, it's really kind of a straightforward slate, even though there's essentially 6 players that are viable. And, Kevin, you're pretty much out of a job. Kirk nailed the weather. I mean, he's talking about, potentially a little dew point here, a little,
nice.
Little wind blowing in here.
And I try to go, I try to say make it a little pop up. Not too worried about it. So
That's
continue.
pretty
on
good.
with the bats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably going to be fine, but can't make any promises. You're doing it.
I welcome people to Crunch Time like they've never felt so welcome, honestly.
Wow. Good job. Yeah, I'm reading the comments here. We've got people asking about Kirk's credentials. They're good enough. They're good enough. Hey, I'm here. I didn't realize baseball can't figure out what time they should start every day. So I can't.
And it's different on every site. Like the sites are different start times today too.
So that's my bad. I screwed that up. Where do we go here? We got pitcher.
So yeah, we're kind of halfway through the pitching. on
Okay.
FanDuel. We're doing FanDuel
Cool.
first because there's more games and it starts first.
Yeah.
The only other pitcher that I think even belongs at all in the player pool is Seth Lugo, just kind of as an MME dart. But basically, Verlander and Lynn to me are just way ahead of the field, and then little shares of Montgomery, Green, Lopez, and Steele, just because it's baseball and it's a 6-game slate.
Kirkwood, what are you doing?
Yeah, so I see it the same way. So first off, don't you think Lance Lynn is probably going to be a lot more popular than Verlander? Don't you think? Just because
I think they'll end up around the same, but there'll be a little more Lynn because the Atlanta bats are priced up.
Yeah, and I could make a case for and then you did say on a small four-game slate or a 6-game slate that you have some shares of Pablo Lopez, but I mean, from a talent perspective, an overall pitcher and who's pitching the best so far this season, I think it's Pablo Lopez. Now it's the matchup gives you a little pause for concern against San Diego, but they've underperformed. They're 4th in K percentage, 20th in WRC plus. So I kind of like rolling, getting a little, or at least being over on the field on Pablo Lopez. So, and then obviously I'm a Boston homer, so I'm trying to make, they've been calling this kid Bello the next Pedro Martinez for a long time. Hasn't quite panned out so well yet, but he looked okay in his last game against Toronto. He's yet to have a game where he's got 4 clear good pitches, which is what great major leaguers have. He just doesn't have them all working on the same game. If he had, last game it was his fastball and slider that weren't working. If he can get it all together, it's super risky against Atlanta, but for GPPs, I could see there being some potential, and that's obvious. Cheese didn't mention the leverage factor there too.
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't want to say the L word, and then that might head explode.
No, but it's not a leverage factor.
But yeah, but in general, I don't like him tonight, but he's definitely going to be good. Like you can see that he's for real. Like he's going to put it together sooner than later. I mean, the guy's 23 years old. He's going to be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's my thought. I don't really have any interest in I don't have interest in Seth Lugo. Like I don't see the need to go down to like any of these lower owned other guys. I mean, I could see the upside with Bello would be the one guy. Jordan Montgomery is going to be popular. And I'm not touching Dean Kramer. I'd honestly consider Dean Shavelson ahead of Dean Kramer.
Okay.
Totally fine.
Sake. Any thoughts on DK? I'm going to mute this. Jesus.
Essentially, no, because we don't even have Verlander or Hunter Green there. It's like Lance Lynn is going to be super mega chalk, and like with Montgomery is kind of the chalk combo, but it's only 4 games and you take away a couple of the good pitchers. I think there you do, if you're MME in there, you do have to play some Seth Lugo, and you do play a lot more Pablo Lopez there. But basically Montgomery and Lynn with some Lopez and Steele, and that's your primary pool.
Now this
or Kirkwood, yeah,
this is a site to get a little more Bello on. Bello, I don't know, but because he's still going to be low owned. I'm showing somewhere around 10% projected ownership. I think it probably will be somewhere around there. So, and you just don't have as many of these options here. So, I think DK would be more of a priority, and then I still don't mind a little bit on FanDuel.
Yeah. So that's pitching. That's all we got.
Okay, thanks for catching me up. This is going great for me today. Let's talk about some of the stacks. And Kirkwood, you get to lead us off there in that department.
All right. So we're going to go back to FanDuel, right? So stack-wise, I think the New York Mets are going to be one of the top stacks from an ownership perspective, I would think, as well as they're the bat number 1 projected. Other than that, I think Tampa Bay. I mean, how old do you think Tampa Bay is going to be, Cheese?
What was the question?
Tampa Bay.
Oh, how owned? Really not very much, because it's like it's a weirdly spread out offense with high prices, and it's like a different group of players every day, so no one gets used to playing them. I really don't think they'll be that popular.
So if that's the case, then I definitely like them a lot. I think the Chicago White Sox are interesting from the fact that Keller is just not a good pitcher. Couldn't strike Dean Shevelson out, to be honest with you. And you get the KC bullpen, who's done okay, but it just seems like they go in some of these really long games with that bullpen. They give up a lot of home runs. I think they're number nine ranked in home runs per 9. So that bullpen. So I like that. But Chicago, you can't count on them. That's for sure. But certainly don't mind the slate form. Atlanta is going to be very popular. They're probably the chalk. But yeah, we'll see how it goes against my Red Sox.
So if I'm getting your Dean Shabelson ratings right, you think he is a legitimate pitcher but not a good hitter? Is that accurate?
Well, no, because Brad Keller is also not a legitimate pitcher.
I see. Okay. All right. I'm just trying to.
You know what? He's like the opposite of Shohei Ohtani is the way I would describe Shelson.
The inverse Ohtani. All right. Cheese, what are your thoughts here as far as stacking goes?
I would put the Braves first and the Mets second and the Rays third. But you can stack everyone on this kind of slate for sure. Okay.
No other teams that you want to?
Nothing else to particularly point out.
Okay. All right. Let's go position by position, I guess. We'll go around the horn here. I have no idea what time lock is, but let's go ahead and start talking with some catchers.
It's about 10 minutes.
Okay. Plenty of time.
So catchers, you can play catchers on Fanduel. If you're stacking almost anybody, a catcher is viable. We got 2 Braves in your Brave stacks. We got 2 Royals. Even if you're playing Lance Lynn, this is a slate. I have a bunch of one hitter against a pitcher kind of lineup. So I do have a little Melendez even in Lance Lynn lineups. I don't mind Wilson Contreras or Adley Rutschman on teams that won't be popular at all. But, pretty good hitters comparatively to other things at the position. And everything else is just random, something cheap in a stack.
Kirk?
Yeah, I was going to say, don't forget that's a great point that Dave made. Don't forget to change that setting if you have it that no hitters against your pitchers. Like, don't be afraid to play one bat because it could be off the bullpen. Giving up a solo shot for a pitcher is fine. It can work out for you from an ownership situation. But Melendez is also cheap. I don't think Dave mentioned that unless I didn't hear it. Yeah, Sean Murphy, Salvador Perez, Grandal, Rutschman. These are all Fanduel. I mean, their catcher's pretty stacked actually for the first time out of on this slate.
Okay, take me to first base.
First base, Pete Alonso, probably the best bet on the board to hit a home run today against Hunter Green. The Mets have been struggling a little bit, so I understand the trepidation potentially there. There is also, I wouldn't mind if some shares of Green. I don't think we mentioned him at all. Other than that, Gavin Sheets is cheap. Home run power upside against Keller, low strikeout pitcher. It's not Tortellini Tuesday, but it is Wednesday is Prince Spaghetti Day. Have you heard that, Dave? You ever heard of that?
I did not know that. That's actually good to know.
What is Prince Spaghetti?
It started in commercials back in the day. It's a brand of like pasta, Prince, but I don't know. It has something to do with like Boston roots and North. So it's probably just something local over here.
Yeah, no, it's not.
But it's big. It's big.
But it is Prince Spaghetti Day.
Matt Olson, obviously. That was an easy home run last night. Probably home runs again tonight. Goldie, always against a lefty. Probably not going to get beat too high owned. Those are my favorite.
Okay. Cheese, thoughts?
Yeah, Alonso and Olson are 2 of the best plays on the whole slate. They will be popular, but they should be popular. Goldschmidt, Vinny P is the same group of names. I think Sheets will be the best cheap guy. But really almost everyone at this position going down like 15 players deep is pretty decent. So feel free to get different if you want to.
Okay, second base, Cheese.
Brandon Lau on FanDuel is the top guy. I think Jeff McNeil is a little too cheap. He's just Hunter Green is the perfect kind of matchup for Jeff McNeil. Like he needs the pitcher to like give him the power, and that's what Green will do, and McNeil makes contact. Albies and Cronenworth and Polanco are all totally fine. But definitely Lau and Albies and McNeil are my top three.
Kirkwood,
Only one or for a second, the only one I would add if you want to try to get some points off Verlander, India leading off at 3,200. I can see that working out. Over to third, Manny Machado. Yeah, against Lopez, tough matchup, but it's a little. The third base is thin in comparison to some of the other positions so far. Austin Riley is probably the best play. Probably going to be the highest owned. You could play Beatty. Is it Batty or Beatty? Do we have an official?
I do not have an official. I go back.
I don't watch enough Mets games.
Enough. I don't watch enough. Like zero. Like why would I do that?
Yeah. Batting fifth, 2,800. Has some pop. Arenado against the lefty. A guy's been struggling, but he's starting to put some good swings together lately. Yandy Diaz has been insane. So that's kind of where I would start. And if you want to go a little bit different with your Tampa stack, you go to Paredes, who's got monster home run power, and he can be played at first or third.
Okay, confirmed Beatty for what it's worth. Cheese, your thoughts at third?
The only player I would add to that is Patrick Wisdom. Otherwise, I agree completely with what Kirk said there.
Very good. We still have 5 minutes until lock, so let's go to shortstop.
All right, let's do. Yeah, let's not looking at it. It's like every position's pretty good. It's kind of a weird slate. It's small, and yet every position has like, half a dozen guys that you kind of want to play, but none that like super jump out over the others. So it's the same thing here. Like Tatis is the best player, but righties against Lopez is kind of a bummer. Same thing with Bobby Witt is the next best player. Well, righties against Lynn, not quite ideal. So this is where I want to get Wander Franco. I think he's going to be criminally underowned for how good he is. I think people are playing Lindor or Correa to go cheaper, or playing Tatis and Witt. So yeah, give me Franco as the top guy.
All right, Kirk.
Only thing to add there would be a potential extremely low-owned Paul DeJong Dong for 2,800 down in the 7th spot against Steele.
Okay,
and Jorge Mateo is priced pretty high, huh? You see that price?
Yeah, there's just these random guys that are more than it seems like they should be.
Let's go to the outfield, Kirkwood.
All right. So I like Buxton a lot. He's probably my favorite outfielder. Acuna for sure. I have as you can tell, I'm a little bit of a Boston homer, so I'm playing a little bellow, and so I'm going under on the Braves. But I think the right play is to be probably over on the Braves, in all fairness. But anyway, Acuna, Juan Soto is in a good spot. No, not the best spot, but he's Juan Soto. Trying to find. Benintendi is cheap. 2,800. Robert, 3K. I do like this entire Royals White Sox game. Both sides of it. Nimmo, 3,200 leading off. I don't know. Dave, give him the best plays.
Okay, I can do that. The best plays are, in fact, Byron Buxton and, weirdly enough, Brandon Nimmo. Kind of like the Jeff McNeil thing. Like he was built to face Hunter Green. It's like if you generated people in a lab just to face Hunter Green every day, it would be like Brandon Nimmo and Jeff McNeil, even though they're not really. I mean, they're not the greatest players in the world, but they match up good here. There's so many. It's kind of like the expanded version of what is that at shortstop. There's just like so many players, and they're all pretty much fine, but they don't really separate themselves much. Like I can go 25 players deep on a 6-game slate and kind of like all of them. But I'm with Kirkwood. I think Buxton's my favorite. I'm just picking one guy. Michael Harris.
Yeah, I was just going to. He's standing out to me because this is the slate where you take the number 8 guy.
Yeah, and this is the one. Like Acuna is the one guy that's just kind of hard to get in, even in Lance Lynn lineups on fan at 4,500. And I mean Harris is a little too cheap on both sides, and he's good.
Okay,
we should probably mention.
Yeah, please.
Sorry, we should probably mention what the Braves are pitching.
What are the Braves
so
pitching?
It's going to be a bullpen game. I read it was going to be Colin McHugh and potentially
McHugh's the bulk guy after the opener, yeah,
and then potentially Chavez as well.
Yeah, which is really, it's not always great to be facing a bullpen game. Like these are guys who can be okay for a couple innings at a time. So it doesn't make me like the Red Sox anymore.
It just makes me want to full stack them or nothing.
Yeah. And especially with Devers out, like there's nobody you just, I need to play that guy. It's just kind of all, maybe you play them all or maybe you don't.
Okay. Anything else we got to cover before we dive into some QQs?
Queued up.
No. And we've hit the lock, I think, essentially. That's happening.
Yeah, the Tampa-Baltimore game is starting right now, and the Mets-Reds game in just a couple minutes, 5 minutes.
All right, let's take a few questions here. I got one from Dean. Mean Dean says, I got a season-long question for Cheeseisgood. How much fab, I don't know how you pronounce that. How do you pronounce that? Fab?
You got it.
How much fab am I spending on Yuri Perez, and why is it everything I have?
Because so I pulled it back up because I saw it like yesterday and laughed. On his Fangraphs page, they've got a little like blurbs about prospects, and the sentence is, built like a human skyscraper, Perez has incredible control of his limbs.
What does that mean? Yeah.
He's a tall human.
Yeah,
this guy's going to be very good. Who knows if he's going to be good right now? But it can be all of it. Yes.
Okay.
He is a super tall pitcher for your Miami Marlins.
Isn't there also a super tall like shortstop that's up and coming that can like hit the hell out of the ball and everyone's excited because he can throw really hard and hit really far? Maybe on Pittsburgh.
A super tall shortstop.
Yeah. Now I'm making shit up, aren't I? I do that sometimes.
Doesn't ring a bell, but maybe.
Oh boy, now I got.
Yeah, I'm forgetting his name too, but I don't think he's been
From
doing
last
well.
season.
Yeah,
the guy from last season.
Yeah.
Everybody was
You're not talking about
excited.
O'Neal Cruz, are you?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Oh, well, yeah. He's already been up and shown that he's going to be good and very inconsistent.
There we go. I think he's super tall. Maybe I was making that part up. And like 9 people in chat were on it.
He's a large person. I wasn't thinking of him as a prospect because
that's true.
He's a proven veteran at 24 years of age.
Yeah. All right, let's get some more QQs before we bounce on out of here. Fanduel single entry, Kirkwood, Ref Schneider and Olsen, or Sheets and Franco?
Sheets and Franco. I mean, you have
Fanduel cash question G, Sheets McNeil or Cronenworth Marte?
Sheets McNeil.
Okay, very good. Now everyone's just talking about O'Neal Cruz. Yes. Let's see if we got any questions. Just to confirm your take, Kirkwood, here. The Prince Spaghetti brand originated in Boston and declared in the long-running ad that Wednesday was Prince Spaghetti Day back in a 1969 commercial.
So I do shows with like Dean, and I drop these little random things like this, and he just said he thinks that I'm lying every time, and he says it's a bit, but like there's always proof. So
I don't know why you would say that.
Shout out to chat for pulling that up.
Yeah, I covered for you. Okay, hey, guess what? Oh, here we go. Now we got some questions. FanDuel cash, last man in, Kirkwood, Cronenworth, Marte, or Sheets?
I think Sheets hits a bomb, so I'm going to say Sheets.
Very good. Fanduel for Cheese. Hey, with Lynn being so highly projected owned, do you agree with the ownership projections with Vinny P at first base being the highest owned first baseman?
Probably not the highest owned. I mean, he will be. There's a bunch of guys that'll be similar, but I think we have Olsen projected super low. I think he'll take more than we have him for.
Okay, this is essentially the same question, Kirkwood, that you just answered. It is FanDuel Cash, last piece. He's got 2,700 left. The names that are around there are Kepler, Sheets, Rosario. You just said you like Sheets out of the other three, but is there one of those
Sheets.
names?
I'm just jam Sheets.
Sheets. Yeah. All right. Jeff Hot Hands says DK single entry, Lugo and Lynn. That's good. It's Hot Hands.
I hope he does the Miyagi thing. That's why the hands are hot.
Lugo and Lynn or Montgomery Steele, Cheese, and DK single entry.
Montgomery Steele.
Robert G says, I need the Kirkwood take on the Flaherty interview. I have no idea what that was.
I haven't seen it, so I'm going to look it up, and I will. I'm doing a show Friday.
I read the words, but I want to hear the tone.
The intent.
Can you catch me up on the overall concept here that I am just have no idea what happened?
They asked him why his velocity is down. He's like, I don't care about my velocity. I'll just get out to how I need to.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right.
He forgot about the getting outs part, though. So.
Right. Yeah.
That's what he has not been doing.
Right.
Like he is not okay. Like he's definitely not okay.
Fanduel Cash, finish a Mets Padres double stack with Cronenworth or Sheets. Oh my God, we're going back to. If you ask Kirkwood another Sheets question, I'm going to stop taking questions. The answer is Sheets, right?
Yeah, I mean, actually, he's on the White Sox. So what? Finishing a what stack?
So he's saying like,
should he use a one-off?
Out of your stack.
I'm sorry. Okay, Fanduel Cash, finish off a Mets Padres double stack with Cronenworth or just one-off Sheets.
But it's cash, so we don't care if it's a stack.
Yeah, but one-off Sheets anyway.
All right.
For me.
DK single entry Cheese, Lugo and Lynn or Montgomery Steele?
By any chance, does Jeff Hot Hands want to know that?
He does. It's Jeff
Montgomery Steele.
Yeah. Cleveland Picker. Did I already ask that question? Is that what happened?
Wait, what is
You did.
My bad, man. I just got so distracted by Hot Hands that I forgot what his question was, and then I just read it again. Didn't even realize it. I'm doing great today. Cleveland Picker says, Cheese, Lynn with an Atlanta Sox stack on FanDuel, or I'm just going to read it as is. Lynn, Atlanta Sox stack on FanDuel, 4-3-1 Machado one-off.
Yeah, he's just telling us his lineup. It sounds good.
Cool. Such cool.
All right. Good job. Ever since I'm just struggling out here. Oh, and we got the clip, by the way. Dean was nice enough to put the clip, the Flaherty clip in here.
I just him saying I can get outs at 90 is like Cardi saying the math is always correct. It's not true. You can say it, but it's not true.
No, you can't. Yeah. Is Francisco Alvarez on fire? Is Francisco Alvarez on fire?
I can't
It's a simple question.
Yeah.
Yes, he is on fire. All right.
And he's legit. He's going to be a good baseball.
You want to tell me what team he's on?
He's the Mets catcher prospect.
Did Steve ask that question?
That's good. I always appreciate when there's good hitting catchers because there's just not enough of them. So I take a certain liking to them. Like my boy Rutschman. I just like him because he's a catcher. If he played anywhere else, I wouldn't give a damn. But
you wouldn't even know his name.
It looks like it's going to be a Hunter Green day. If you strike out Brandon Nemo in the first at bat, you might be a good sign of.
It can always be a Hunter Green day.
Yeah,
it's like the Christian Javier thing from today, where he, today he struck everybody out. Next time he gets up the home runs.
All right. Well, after that wildly successful show where I came in 15 minutes late, then my dog interrupted the show for 5 minutes barking. And then I was consistently lost in where we are. I think we're going to call it on that high note. We're going to end it on a high note, and we're going to bounce on out of here. Hey, make sure you sign up for the FanDuel Sportsbook if you haven't already done so. New users, sign up. You get the fantastic bonus offer. You bet $5, get 150 in bonus bets. It is good stuff. You should be doing it. Terms and conditions apply. Make sure you're checking that out. For Cheese, for Kirkwood, for our incredible production crew, always working hard behind the scenes. Guys, we appreciate you. We love you. And we will catch you tomorrow. You have been crunched.